Okay, that's hilarious. You guys are already chatting, and I haven't started the episode yet. What's up with that? Hello, this is my flannel shirt that I got at Duluth Trading Company, and it's like the rose color instead of red. Red's my favorite color, and this was like $10, and the red one was like $50. So I got the rose colored one, and I think you're gonna see me in this shirt all winter long because I put it over a t-shirt when it's cold, and it's awesome. It's really comfortable. It fits great. The only complaint I have is this pocket right here has like a little pen sewn shut thing. That means I can't fit anything in that pocket. That's the pocket I want to actually put things in. So then I have to put them on the right hand pocket. That's kind of a bummer. I would have rather somebody told me the best way to do it is when they put the little slit in the pocket, which this also has, but it has a channel all the way down. So that's not good. Anyway, we haven't had an episode yet this year on how to hand make gifts, like handmade gifts. One of the things I love to do is handmade gifts for people. Last year, I tried to handmade gifts and they were not done on time. I still have a million tiny little honey bears. Maybe I'll bust those out this year. But this year, come hell or high water, I'm making time to hand make some gifts. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to, of course, record this live, which means y'all on YouTube get all of the outtakes and you get to watch me edit. If you have questions or comments, I'm actually going to mention that this is live streaming while recording the podcast and make sure my mic is at the right angle. And then if you have a comment or something in all caps, I'll see it. And if I can work it in, I will. Because what happens when we start talking about handmade gifts is people start thinking of new ideas for handmade gifts. By the way, I see that Salima's on. I've got your body butter right by my desk because this stuff from washing all my hands all the time, my hands get really dry. This stuff is the best for that. Gonna have to order more soon. And I understand that shipping is slow, so we have to get our orders into Salima as soon as possible, right, Salima? So you know what's up for the holiday season. Okay, so with that, we're gonna get started on our recording. Oh, you know what? I was about to make a terrible mistake. Still have not figured out how to permanently turn the metronome off. I'm pretty sure if I just type that into DuckDuckGo, it will come up with a solution for that. But for some reason, it's not obvious. So I was about to have a metronome like banging me in the ear the whole time. Okay. Now I gotta hack up a hairball. I've got my cat eyes on, so hairballs happen. A little bit of carbonated water. Don't want to burp into the mic though. That's the worst thing about podcasting is like if you burp, you have to go back and edit your burp out. Okay. It's actually not the worst part, but it is part of it. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't burp. Unlike other humans, I don't burp. Okay. We're going to get into this thing. Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms. Today is Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. This is episode 357 of Living Free in Tennessee. And this week's theme is winter is coming. And no, it's not the Game of Thrones, although that is totally happening in our society right now. No, like literally, it's time to get ready for winter on the homestead. And one thing that we have in winter is that holidays are coming. Holiday gift giving season is coming. And I have an annual tradition of giving homemade gifts to people for Christmas. And so we've had an annual episode with gift ideas. Here's the deal with this. It gets harder every year to do an episode about gift giving ideas because I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done 5 episodes on handmade country gifts, right? So I can't just say, well, make a can of jam and you're good to go, because that's a great gift for people who eat jam. So today I have 4 new ideas. One is an alternate on a previous idea. I'm going to share those with you. We are streaming this to live streaming this to YouTube, streaming this to LiveTube. That's a good way to say that, isn't it? Anyway, we've got people on the YouTube channel that if they have ideas and I see them in chat, then I will read them out so people listening to the podcast have an idea. Also, because we've done so many episodes on handmade gifts, I have in the show notes links to past episodes in case you want to go back and like hear how I make Kahlua or listen to a special cookie recipe or whatever it is. um, Lots of ideas from years past. It is Wednesday, so it is Holler Hat Wednesday. Where is she and what's she almost done with? You can find that over on Instagram at Nicole Sauce. And then tomorrow is Thursday. We do the Holler Neighbor live stream every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Going into Christmas, we may change that schedule because going into Christmas, Nicole roasts a lot of coffee till late at night. And what we are going to do is broadcast, if the internet will handle it, which it should, because we have a repeater, broadcast from the Bean Barn. That's the new building where the roaster is going to be installed. It is almost ready for the roaster to be installed. So we thought it'd be kind of fun to we don't have electricity done until Friday, Saturday-ish, but we thought we'd get some battery operated lights out there and, make sure my laptop is charged. And then we are going to broadcast from the Bean Barn. You can see what's up in the Bean Barn tomorrow, 7 p.m. Holler Neighbor live stream. Link for that is also in the show notes. That will be live streaming on YouTube. Lastly, if you want to send feedback, Stump the Sauce questions, or any other questions, you can do it, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. Next week, I want to do a Q&A session with y'all. So I've had a lot of little side questions on Zello and email and text message and lots of questions that people have just on a variety of topics, from getting gardens ready to processing food to what I think is going to happen when the election is decided, or rather not decided, to, my thoughts on travel, whatever. If you have a question that you think would be good to put in the variety show, which will happen next week, send it to Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com or go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact and fill out the form, and those questions will come to me. I like to do these kinds of things every so often just to kind of catch up on what questions are coming out of the network. With that, it's time for the first segment of today's show, and that is Stump the Sauce. This is where we ask me questions, and you try to stump me, or you don't try to stump me, but you're really wondering the answer to this thing. And this one came in from Samantha. She says, do you dry your herbs in bundles, or do you strip leaves and put them in the dehydrator, or something else entirely? And Samantha, the answer to that is it depends. It depends in part on what I'm dehydrating and in part on what I have time to do, right? And then I also look at the environment. So we'll start with the ways of dehydrating herbs. When I'm dehydrating herbs, I prefer not to dehydrate them in the dehydrator. However, when the outside humidity level is like 98%, herbs don't dry very well. And that's when I may throw them in my Excalibur on the lowest possible setting for it to even work. Like if my Excalibur was one of the older models, which has a fan only setting, I would do a fan only setting. In fact, I like that idea so much, I may just get some racks in front of a box fan for this purpose, because the cooler that you dry your herbs, the better they hang on to their flavor. As to whether I take them off the stems or not, if I do not have to take herbs off the stem to dehydrate, then I don't. I take the leaves off after they are dehydrated. And the reason I do that, I don't know if it's true or not, but they say, and I've never verified it, that more flavor comes into the leaves. And so like with peppermint, what I like to do is bundle it up, hang it upside down, and let it air dry. If that's not going to happen, I put it flat on a cookie sheet in the open air just to separate them if it's too humid, or I put it flat on my dehydrator tray, but I do leave them on the stem. Mullein, on the other hand, is as tall as I am at some points. And so I take individual mullein leaves, but they're about, 8 to 10 inches long, and I dry those one leaf at a time. Same with other things like sassafras leaves from the tree. You need to pick the leaves off the tree. You're not going to take a whole branch. So that's how I like to dehydrate things. Right now, what we're doing is getting everything that hasn't been frost damaged. If my basil had made it, I would have been dehydrating basil. But while I was out of town, something knocked it back, and now it's just ugly stems. So meh. I mean, I could harvest the stems and make broth, throw them in my stock pot. But other than that, I'm not going to be like, the leaves are gone. So that's a bummer. But we have dill still in the in the hydroponics system, and we'll take that out, and then I'll dry it on the stems, and then you shake it and all the little teeny leaves come off on the counter, and then I brush them into whatever I'm storing the dill in. And that's how you get the tiny little dill leaves for making salad dressing and whatnot. And then we've got mint and lemon balm and other things like that that are still not dead. So we've been running around different parts in our winter is coming efforts and harvesting those, bundling them up and hanging them upside down on my lettuce growing shelf system. And because at this time of year it's dry enough, I can just go at room temperature. So that's my favorite way to dehydrate. Once they're dry, I just make sure my counter is clean. I put them on the counter and I pick the dry leaves off. I try not to crumble them up too much. Like, you can just use your hand and knead the herbs, but you can, what happens is you break open the leaves. And so if you can keep the leaves on more whole, then when you use them, I just rub my hands back and forth and grind them up on their way into the pan, and I just get more flavor. So the smaller you quote unquote grind them before you use them and store them that way, the less likely you are to have as much flavor for as long a period of time. And that's my goal with the dried herbs, is to keep them dry, store them in a jar with like a moisture absorber if I have it. I vacuum seal that lid, and then, I smish them up as they come out so they have the longest life of flavor. Next segment is Tales from the Booze Whisperer. Now, I see on the YouTube live stream that the Booze Whisperer is there making snarky remarks at me, but he has not put a segment in. So, I mean, I'm just saying, there's no segment from the Booze Whisperer. However, the Booze Whisperette is a little bit more available because the Booze Whisperer has a really aggressive job, apparently, and can't record all the time. And the Booze Whisperette has not had a question. So I would love to hear your questions on beverages that the Booze Whisperette might, put forth an answer to. She does a great job. And if I'm able to trap the Booze Whisperer into a conversation about cocktails, which usually isn't hard to do when we're talking, we'll get one of his segments up too. Next segment is What's Up in the Garden. I'm so glad to say something is up in the garden. That's, because I kind of like my fall garden stuff didn't germinate very well this year, but my summer garden stuff had a bit of a rejuvenation, and we are getting things ready for winter. So here's what's up. For the first time in many, many years, in probably all the years of this podcast, the garlic is planted, and it is also still October. That's right. Today, we've been doing this thing where from 10 a.m. to 12, I walk away from the phone and everything else, and we do the Winter is Coming projects. And we decided this week, because it's going to rain on Thursday or Friday, to do some of the things outside that would be unpleasant to do in the rain. And then we'll work on some of the internal systems inside when it's raining. So we got the garlic bed was already prepped by Tactical about a month ago. We got the garlic in, we got the whole upper garden done and ready for spring planting. We have one area where we can put, brassicas in and see if we can get some broccoli going into the winter, that sort of thing. So this new schedule is working really well. We got strawberries transplanted. We took them out of the hydroponics system and put them on a hillside. So we're watering them daily. Some of those are going to die. The ones that'll live, though, will be forever hardy. So those are transplanted. I also harvested the horseradish. So we'll be processing that this week. And then some of it got transplanted over in that new strawberry area, where we are also added 2 peach trees, 2 cherry trees. And the peach trees are looking a little like, why did you move me? But my next door neighbor is a hunter, and he has really nice, robust peach trees at his place, which is across the county. And this year he had a couple of, I guess they were 4 or 5 foot tall, more like 4 foot tall trees that have come off of his peach trees. So I'm gonna be more responsible about spraying those with garlic tea and that sort of thing in the spring, because what happens here is we get the blight pest. The blight pest. That means pests and the blight come in and they make my trees really unhappy. And I haven't ever really done anything to prevent it. I just keep hoping eventually I'll get fruit, and I get a little bit sometimes. We're also going to add blueberries over there. It's this whole new area that's been opened up where we used to call it Garbage Grove because I had a digester there. Digester's been moved and we still have 2 composting bins, but we had some invasive species out there and the 2 rednecks went after it with a trencher. So I'm probably going to be fighting, the offshoots of some of these plants I don't want there. But I thought rather than have bare dirt, we would plant as much over there as possible. Going to be moving comfrey over there, just a lot of different things, and then scattering some ground cover for the coming winter time. Also, really cool, in the aquaponics system, the greens made it through the summer. So my Swiss chard, there's one plant that the Booze Whisperer put in there that's a Swiss chard that has never died. It just keeps going and going and going, and that one's come back. But my other Swiss chard that went in the spring is also popping back up. I'm going to do a round of Garrett juice out there before the rains come. And then, of course, the green onions are banging. Those are from Aldi. And I just buy a package and put little ones in, and they get big. And then we use them on our salads and in our stir fries. Other than that, just need to get the Egyptian walking onions in the ground. Any that are left that are not planted. Okay, with that, it is time for the main topic of today's show, for homemade gift ideas. Why would we want to homemade gifts? Good question. I actually really appreciate a good gift that's thoughtful, whether it's homemade or not. But as we go into the holiday season and look at building the values into our lives of being able to be financially stable for the long term, homemade gifts can cost a lot, but it's a good way to save money. So that's one way. And you can make somebody a very nice, thoughtful gift by hand. The other thing is I've had different opinions on Christmas gifts over the years, but as I've gotten, more experience in life, I don't want to spend $2,000 on Christmas gifts so that other people spend $2,000 on me once a year. I can see how that's fun because you get to open all these gifts, but at the same time, like, how much stuff do we really need? I'm fighting like the clutter in my office, and for those on YouTube, I'm like gesturing behind me. I still have onions behind me that need to go into the root cellar. But every day, at the end of the day, for half an hour, I declutter. And the net result of this is that the house that I live in is much more pleasant to be in. But what happens is I find things that I have that I'm never going to use, and I get rid of them. So, we live in a society where it's very cheap and easy to get a lot of stuff. And then that stuff adds up. And, so like for my little nieces, it's fun to get them toys that they can play with and that sort of thing. But a nice handmade consumable gift is awesome because you can use that body butter like Selima makes. You can use that up and then get more later when you want it. Or if somebody makes a nice soap, that's great. It's always great to have handmade soap in your house. So it's fun, I think, to go into the holiday season rather than saying, okay, I'm going to spend in the family, $200 to $500 per person for gifts or whatever. Take the money equation out of it. Look at like, how can we make this a fun experience together where we've spent time thinking about who we're making the gifts for and what we might make for them, and then put the work in to make a nice gift to give them. And when you live on a homestead, you find that you have a lot of raw ingredients for homemade gifts. If you're into canning your surplus, pickled okra, pickled beets, all of those things go over really well. If I get honey from the bees, that makes a really good gift and people like them. So I think when we live the homestead lifestyle, whether we be out in the country like I am or city homesteading like the Booze Whisperer does, you just end up with neat things you can give people. You can give people plants. Like Dawn is really good with aloe vera plants. That's Sean's awesome wife, Dawn. Um, Sean from Hack My Solar. She has an aloe vera plant. It makes additional aloe vera plants. She pots them up. Those make great gifts, right? So it just kind of depends on how you are set up, right? And what your interests are, what's going to make the best handmade gift. But this year, these are 4 ideas I have. One of them came from my niece. The first one came from my niece. So 2020 happened and this virus called COVID that has everybody all a twist came. And a lot of people found themselves at home without access to restaurants for the first time in their lives. And so if you looked at what people were interested in at that point, they were going to the internet. They were looking up how to make things from scratch and learning how to do things like sourdough bread. Or I have a friend who took a class on how to make homemade wontons, like lots of different things you could learn. And as a result of that, there's been a resurgence of interest in home cooking. Well, if you have a family with a family history, perhaps you have one of those little card boxes full of recipes. I mean, I don't have that, but I do have a cigar box with all of my grandpa's recipes, except for one that I still can't find. The Swedish steak recipe, man. If anybody listening to this and they're related to me and you have Grandpa Darby's Swedish steak recipe, I need it. Anyway, I have a bunch of recipes from my grandpa's restaurant. I have a bunch of recipes that I got from mom growing up. I've got a bunch of recipes from my other side of the family, right? So all of these things are family recipes. And what's happened this year is my nieces have been cooking their little tails off and they have some recipes. There is an apple crisp recipe that my youngest niece loves to make, right? I'd love to compare that to grandpa's or put them next to each other. So something you could do that might be really fun for your family is just reach out to them and ask them what their top, 3 to 5 favorite recipes are. Get those recipes and then compile them into a booklet. This is something that you want to have done before Thanksgiving if you're going to print it. Because when we get closer and closer to the holiday season, the printers get more and more overwhelmed. Right. I'm printing holiday inserts right now for coffee because I don't want to deal with printing holiday inserts for coffee at the end of November when everybody's panicked about timeline and then there's Thanksgiving and there's days off. Right. So this is something you'd want to start doing now. And then you can also ask yourself, like, which recipes do I think really shine? Get 20 to 30 recipes and then organize them by main dish, side dish, dessert. You can just do those 3 categories and done. You can do salads if you can do soups, but main dish, side dish, dessert gets you there. And then if you can do it, get pictures of the food or get pictures of the person that saved the recipe, whatever it is, you can really do some fun stuff with that. So that's my first idea of a handmade gift. It doesn't take a lot of hand making. It's more like collating or collecting things. So that's one. Second idea. I talked about it in the introduction. There's always got to be a boozy idea going into Christmas from Nicole Sauce. And this year is no different. And the concept this year, and I've done this one other time, is Kahlua. Why Kahlua? Because Kahlua is a coffee liquor. Why would I do something like that? Because I roast coffee and I like liquor, right? So Kahlua, we made it a few years ago and it was fantastic. And what you do is you start with 100 proof vodka or higher or other clear liquor, and you soak vanilla beans in it, and then you let that sit for 6 weeks. And then you add strongly brewed coffee or espresso and sugar. And then you put it in a pretty bottle. Well, this year I thought, you know what? That Kahlua was good. It was good. It's good in coffee. It makes good hot toddies. I have a question for the Booze Whisperette on YouTube right now about hot toddies. It says, besides hot toddies, are there other good drinks for colds? And I'm sure that we can find out from the Booze Whisperette or the Booze Whisperer. I like bourbon. I have stopped making my vanilla with vodka and I have started making my vanilla extract with bourbon. So I thought this year we're going to do a Bourbon Kahlua. So in order to do that, I need per 2 vanilla beans, 1 liter of 100 proof or higher bourbon. This usually means it's a higher end bourbon, although Jack Daniels makes one. I may get a Woodford Reserve. I may get the Four Roses single barrel. Not sure yet what I'm going to get, but 1 liter of bourbon, 2 vanilla beans, open it up, pour a shot. Woo, that's the fun part of making this one. And then that leaves you room to put 2 vanilla beans in there, screw the lid on every couple days, shake the bottle for 6 weeks. If I start that now, I'm going to be finishing my Kahlua around December 1st, first week of December, and then it'll be ready for Christmas, right? So you do that, wait the 6 weeks, and then strongly brew 4 cups of coffee per liter. This is why you're getting 100 proof or higher. A, it extracts the vanilla better. B, you're going to cut down the proof when you add 4 cups of coffee. I mean, you're basically cutting it in half at that point, right? Almost cutting it in half. So I use espresso at that point. If you're going to do a French press, like, consider doubling up. If you're afraid that it's going to dilute it too much, do three cups of even stronger coffee. And of course, I recommend using hollow roast. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? And then to that, you add 8 cups of brown sugar. The brown sugar adds it's better than white sugar. If white sugar is all you have, use that. If you have sorghum, you can use that. It will add a strange flavor, or molasses, but it won't be bad. It'll just alter the quality. Personally, I use 4 cups of sugar instead of 8 now, but the official recipe that I've used in the past that people really like is 8 cups of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. What I do is I take the coffee that's brewed, I melt the sugar in it, and I heat it up a little, like gently heat it up. Do not scald the coffee. Burnt coffee tastes terrible, but heat it if you need to continue dissolving the sugar. Let that cool, and then mix it with the alcohol, because we don't want to burn off any of the alcohol by putting hot liquid in it. I don't know how much would really burn off, but that's how you do that. And then once it's done, right now, if you go to the Dollar Tree, you'll probably find a bunch of pretty bottles, or you won't. It just depends on their supply. So that's one place to get bottles. You can get them on Amazon. You can go to one of those, international marketplaces, but find some pretty bottles and put them in there. And that's how you serve it. And then you can tie a nice ribbon around it, little card. It makes it really pretty. And if you're really going to overachieve on this one, find a recipe for the Bourbon Kahlua and include that, right? You could do some sort of an Irish coffee with Kahlua sort of approach, or whatever you want to do. Other Kahlua drinks, there are cold ones you can do, hot ones you can do. I actually like the mudslide sometimes, so that's just me. You put Kahlua in a mudslide, right? Booze Whisperer, I know you're listening. You should tell me in the comments in all caps, especially if I'm wrong. Okay, so that's my second idea. Idea number 3. I have a lot of feminine ideas. One is the recipe book. Kahlua could be a guy, could be a girl. This one's a dude idea. I'm going to genderize my ideas, apparently. Walking stick. This walking stick was made for me by a friend who lives next door, George. And for those of you on the podcast, I'm holding up a walking stick, and I had sprained my ankle and needed to be able to go to the airport and get from place to place. And rather than having a big, tall staff, because I have a taller one of those, I needed a walking stick. So he made it for me. And he wrote my name in Cherokee characters on it and some other sayings, and decorated it up with a wood burning tool. It's beautiful. It's, what he does is he takes a stick, gets the bark off of it, and then decorates them up and oils them or puts finish on them. It's that easy to make a walking stick. If you don't want to do carving, though, or wood burning, you can just go find a pretty stick in the woods. I have a stick that my dog is not super happy about that gets knocked over every time I open the door. And it's got It's almost looking like ironwood, although I don't think it is, but it's got little black veins in it. And if you just find a nice hardwood out in the woods and it's straight enough for tall enough, take the bark off, make sure it's dry enough to take an oil or a finish, and then oil it up. Tactical Redneck says he likes to use used motor oil on it. I like linseed oil personally, or you can finish it. But that is something that you could do with your kids. Go out for a hike in the woods, look for the, wood that you can use to debark, teach them how to take bark off of it, have them really take care of the process, and then they can decide who gets which stick. And I think when you have activities like that with your kids around the holidays, it makes it even more gratifying when they give the gift that they made, that they found. And getting them out in the woods, getting exercise is always a good move, right? Because a tired kid is a well-behaved kid, except for if they can't fall to sleep, in which case they just scream and keep you awake all night. Okay, next idea is the Advent calendar. You know that little calendar that you can buy has, you want to give this one away before December 1st, probably. Starts December 1st and goes through the 24th, right? So each door you open and there's a piece of chocolate. That's an Advent calendar, right? That's counting down to Christmas is what it's doing. Well, you can make one. And here's what you do. You get a really long ribbon, like fabric ribbon, not gift wrapping ribbon. And you make little pouches and you sew them to the ribbon and you make it so they close. So you put a little drawstring in there and then you put something different in each pouch. Doing this means it does not have to be chocolate every single day, right? You can have a little plastic Christmas tree ring, or you could have, a note that you wrote. You could have a piece of chocolate if you want to. You could have different little bottles of booze, little single serving ones. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can put in the Advent calendar. And the sewing of it is one piece. The filling of it's something else. But then once you've given that to somebody, they have that Advent calendar that you can just hang up on the wall or over a door for the rest of their life or until it wears out. And then every year you can figure out what to fill it up with, right? And that just helps. I think part of the fun of Christmas is the lead up to Christmas and getting excited about it. And that is one way to stretch out the excitement at a time of year when it's getting cold and it's dark and you find yourself at home still awake after dark. Like in the summertime, when it's dark, I'm pretty much asleep. That's what happens, right? I've worked all day. I'm going to bed. Other people don't need as much sleep as I do. But with the winter time, we find ourselves looking around and it's 3:30 and already getting dark. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's 3:30. I got to get all this stuff done outside. The animals need to go to bed, blah, blah, blah. And then there you are in your house. Well, it can be easy to get a little depressed at that point, especially if you're sensitive to light issues. So having that fun and that wonder leading into a holiday, I think is great. So my fourth idea is the Advent calendar. There are a lot of ways you could do this. You could make wooden boxes instead of sewing it, right? It doesn't matter. It just has to be a thing that holds another thing and enough of those things that you can fill up 24 little buckets and then count down to Christmas. And, as I said, the fun part is putting the things in there. I have a friend who does as a kid, and she puts like little toys, cheap toys, but toys in each day and leading up to the big day of Christmas, which is the 25th, of course. Anyway, what ideas do you guys have? I'd love to hear what you like to do for getting ready for Christmas, what you might be thinking of doing this year. My ideas this year, as I said, there's 4 of them: walking stick, Advent calendar, Bourbon Kahlua, and the family recipe book. We'll see how much of that Nicole really gets done, but I think I'll get a good amount of it done this time because winter is coming. But share your ideas. We'll spread them around the network and see if we can all have a better and more fun homemade Christmas. With that, if you do like the show and want to support the work I do, you can do it in a couple of ways. One, we have a membership program that gets you access to webinars. We just did the cybersecurity webinar with Andy Higginbotham, and we're getting the video out by the end of this week for those of you who missed it. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. The other way you can support me is by getting your coffee at hollerroast.com, HOLLER roast.com. That's 2 R's next to each other in the URL. I've got the holiday stuff up now. You have to look for it because I'm trying not to go front and center in your face before Halloween, which is my favorite holiday in the whole world, by the way. But I might not make it because this year the shipping is so much slower already. I really think it's important to get your gifts orders in if you're going to mail order stuff as soon as you can. Maybe not as soon as you can right now, but definitely hit it sooner. Last year, so I shipped on Monday after Black Friday. Those orders took 2 weeks. Tuesday after Black Friday, those delivered as normal, but that Monday after I'm not shipping anything that day this year just because it was so bad. So do think about Christmas in advance this year just because the shipping stuff is weird. And you can find that over at hollerroast.com. With that, go out and make it a great week. I know you guys are disappointed I didn't make any terrible errors while I was recording this live stream. Let's see what comments. Do I still have tomatoes producing? Oh, no. Tactical's asking Janet that question. You guys are funny in the chat. So, Janet, I'll get your question into Allie. She probably also heard it on the podcast, and we are all sad that Simply Cleansing has shut down, but maybe someday she will open again. I actually sat with her. Well, I got to visit the Rormans on my way home, and we talked a little bit about that, what it's like to run a business out of your kitchen when you also need to cook in your kitchen. It's not super easy to manage. So my favorite bourbon, do I have a favorite bourbon? I would have said Woodford Reserve in the past, but I've tasted a lot of other bourbons I really like. And so I do like Eagle Rare a lot. I like Buffalo Trace. I like the Four Roses single barrel. I have one up here. Jefferson's Reserve's pretty good. So I just like bourbon. I think that's the answer to that question. Anyway, we'll get this podcast up and get rolling. And Friday, we have a fun interview. You guys are going to love it. So make it a great week.